Okay. And just as a friendly reminder about where the recordings are, in the chat box. So if you've been unable to attend our last two meetings, or if you have staff that aren't able to jump on sometimes, they can go to this YouTube channel, and that's where these recordings are posted. It takes a few days for us to get it up on the YouTube channel, so just bear with us for a couple days, but the last two meetings are up there right now. Okay, so we're going to start with vaccines because I think that's probably what most of you all are here wondering if we have any updates for you. So I'm going to start with that, and if that's all you came here for today, then you're welcome to jump off, and I don't have much more after the vaccine update. So again, it should be a pretty quick meeting. So where are we at with vaccines? As you all know, child care providers are in the 1B group, which means you all are prioritized right now to get your vaccine. I'm going to walk through one more time how to register for the vaccine, and then we'll talk about some of your questions that you guys probably have in terms of why is it taking so long and all of that kind of stuff. So let me first just show you one more time how to register if you have any staff that haven't done so. Okay, so again, the easiest place to start is to go to pima.gov. This is the main landing page for the Pima County website. And up on this top banner here, there's a COVID vaccine banner that circles through every few seconds that you can click on that, or you can just go right here to the tab on the right that says COVID vaccine. And before I click on the registration page, I just want to again show you guys some things here on our website. If you're wondering how many doses have been given so far, we're about at almost 120,000 doses that have been provided. That was updated on Monday. And then some additional information if you're wondering where are we at in terms of phases. I know there's been a lot of questions about what about the 65 and older group. You can see here, this just kind of shows you where we're thinking. I know the 65 and older group, we've gotten the 1B group. We just haven't gotten there quite yet. Right now, we're still working through adults 75 and older, protective services, occupations like police, and education and child care workers like all of you. I've gotten a few questions as well from folks about what if I have a high-risk medical condition. So I just want to point you all to this box here that those folks are in the 1C group. This page also has some latest news and information. There's a distribution update that's posted here on this page. So again, this just has some good information on it. And then if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, I'm going to put this link in the chat box as well because this is a really, really good one. This frequently asked questions page has tons of information. Just about every question I've gotten, at least this week, the answers are on this page. So I just want to direct you all here. It's a really good resource. I'm going to drop it in the chat box right now. This link will take you directly to the frequently asked questions page. And again, you can just go to our vaccine website as well, and it's there. But I would highly, highly recommend that if you have any staff, family members, friends who have questions about the vaccine in terms of safety, how do I volunteer, just general questions about the vaccine, this page really is helpful. So you guys have that. And then I'm just going to back up to this page again to show you how to register if you have anyone who hasn't done so yet. Click on the big blue box for registration for priority phase 1B. And then if we scroll down, there we go, you can click on school and child care workers. And then here, child care workers, click on the make your appointment button. So again, this form that you fill out when you click this button is basically just a vaccine interest form. So we're gathering your information that goes into a system, and that system is what we utilize to push out appointment slots. So by filling out this form, you're not going to be making an appointment right away. Once you complete the form on your website, unfortunately, you just kind of have to be patient and sit and wait. You will get an email from TMC MyChart when it's time for you to make your appointment. And then just a friendly reminder to mute yourself if you've not already done so. I'm just getting a little bit of background noise. So you'll be getting the email from TMC MyChart when it's time to make your appointment. That's who it's going to come from, is TMC MyChart. How long is that going to take has been the question lately, and it just kind of depends on how many vaccines we've been allocated. So it's really, a supply issue at this point. The county and all of our wonderful volunteers and community partners have the capacity to roll out lots and lots of vaccines. We just don't have enough vaccines to vaccinate everybody that's in our pool right now. So I've mentioned, on this call quite a few times that the 1B group is very large, and so it's just taking a little bit of time to work through everybody that's in the queue right now. So if you haven't received an email from TMC MyChart yet, but you have completed this form on our website, just please try and hang tight. We know it's been a bit of a frustrating process to just kind of sit and wait. And I know there's some of you who registered the first day I sent this link out, which was about 2 weeks ago, and some of you still haven't heard anything yet. So I know that can be really tough, but just continue to bear with us, and we're trying to get through everybody in the queue. So let me just stop there, and we've got one question. I have a few teachers who are not having success with TMC MyChart. Can they go to the TCC and wait in line? Good question. So let's just go ahead and jump to that part of the agenda right now. Brian, if you're on, do you want to address the TCC walk-in option?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. And Rebecca, thanks for giving me a little bit of space. And big wave to Amy, too. Good to see you on the call. For those of you who have gone through this county process, like Rebecca said, you've made your appointment and you still haven't heard from TMC, we would suggest maybe trying that again in the next 5 days or so. But there is an option today through Friday for you to go to the TCC, wait in line, and walk up and get vaccinated. I do know that as of yesterday, TMC, which is the one that sends out MyChart, had about 25,000 people that they have sent out emails to through the MyChart system. There have been a few issues with that overall, which we are troubleshooting on the back end. But you can, from today through Friday, go ahead and walk up at the TCC to get your vaccine there and go through the registration process. You will need to bring a identification that links you directly with the child care center that you are employed with. If that's an ID badge, if that's a pay stub, if that's a W-9 that has the name of the facility on it, along with your name, and you can prove that you are that individual, because we will double check that, then you can do a walk-up between today and Friday.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. Any questions about that? So again, if you've been having issues, you have staff, or you yourself still need to get vaccinated and you've got time between today and Friday, you can walk up to Tucson Convention Center and get your vaccine from today until Friday. So spread the word, and if you're not able to walk up and do that at TCC for this week and you've already completed the form on our website, then just hang tight and wait for that appointment from TMC MyChart. So those right now are the updates that I have for vaccines. So any questions about vaccines for right now? And if any more come up while we move on to other things, you can drop them in the chat box. And you're welcome to unmute yourself as well if you want to shout your question out. Okay. So the other thing as well about registering for the vaccine, I sent out another mass email this week. There will be mailers, little postcards that got mailed yesterday to all of our child care providers. And Amy, yes, to clarify, the walk-ins at TCC end on Friday for right now.
I would just add to that, though, Rebecca, really quick, that any of you, when you do get the invitation from TMC MyChart, you have now the option to schedule at U of A or TCC in the next couple weeks. So just an additional option to make sure you check when you actually register through MyChart.
Perfect. Thanks, Brian. And yeah, Amy, just to clarify, the TCC option for this week, I'm just referring to walk-ups. So as Brian mentioned, you'll be able to make appointments at TCC and U of A through MyChart, but when we're referring to this week ending on Friday, today through Friday is just if you want to walk up, don't have an appointment, you're just going to show up. That ends on Friday. And so again, there will be postcards coming out in the mail just to encourage you all to get registered. It includes the website link on where to go to do that. So we're really just trying to get the word out to all of you and your staff that we would really, really love for you all to register and get vaccinated. So we're trying to just push the message out as best we can. So you might be getting a little postcard in the mail just to help encourage folks to do that. And then also we're getting just a little one-pager put together that has some basic information on the vaccine safety, potential side effects, you know, where you can go to register, where you can go to get your vaccine. Just a sort of basic one-pager is going to be coming out, which I will email to all of you. I'll share it on our next webinar and hope it should be done by then. So that is something that you all can potentially print out and put up in bulletin boards or in break rooms or in front offices of your centers or at your homes. To help hopefully encourage some of your other coworkers to register to get vaccinated if they haven't already done so. So we understand that it might be a little bit easier for some of you to have something printed that you can put up around instead of emails, which I know can be really tough for some of you guys. You're so super busy. And so there will be a printable material ready for you guys as well. Okay. So anything else vaccine related that you all have questions about? Do you have any concerns? Has anything come up lately that you want to address? Got a hand up. Go ahead and unmute yourself and you can go ahead and ask a question.
Just wanted, just a little bit confused about what you were saying about registering and getting information from TMC versus the TCC and which place a person can go.
Sure. So TMC is the entity that issues the TMC MyChart emails. And the TMC MyChart emails are how you make an appointment to get your vaccine. And appointments can be made at either the University of Arizona or TCC. So if you have registered through the form on our website, you will be getting an email from TMC MyChart to make your appointment. Today through Friday, you can walk up to TCC without an appointment to get your vaccine. Does that clarify, Linda?
Right, and that's for people in the 1B group, correct?
Yes, that's only for folks in the 1B group.
And as of today, does that include people only over 75 or people over 65, or tell me for sure? Just clarify that for me.
Yeah, so in the 1B group right now, that's the folks that are over 75. That's our law enforcement and protective services, school and child care workers.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, let me go back to the chat box. Anything else? If not, oh, here we go. Parents have asked if we are requiring staff to be vaccinated. Do you have any guidance on requiring the vaccine for early childhood staff? So as a health department, you know, that's not something that we can do. We can't mandate, and we won't mandate that anyone needs to get vaccinated. Vaccine at this point is a choice, and it's completely up to you all as employers if that's something that you would like to potentially require staff to be vaccinated. I would recommend that you speak to, you know, if you have some sort of legal advisor, that's who I'd recommend you speak to if that's something that you're looking to potentially do. But as the health department, that's not something that we can do as a private business. That's something you could potentially do. But again, I would ask for some legal advice on that if that's a route that you're going to go. Margaret, can 1B choose to go to TMC through MyChart? Brian, that's no, isn't it?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question one more time?
Can 1B choose to go to TMC through MyChart? The 75 and older can,
Oh,
but I'm
yeah,
not sure.
no, they cannot. They must be, for anyone in the education field, which is comprised of 3 groups, K through 12, early childcare, university, college, trade school. they must be sent an invitation from TMC MyChart and use the Pima County registration system in order to receive that invitation from TMC MyChart. Otherwise, we would have 200,000 people going to TMC MyChart and trying to access the system, which would crash effectively TMC's hospital operations. So, yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Any other questions, guys, about vaccines? If not, I'm going to move ahead a little bit. All right. And if anything comes up, just go ahead and ask it in the chat box.
Do you see Donna's got a hand up, Becca, if we haven't already got her?
I did not. Go ahead, Donna, if you want to unmute yourself.
Hi, I was just wondering the hours of operation for the TCC location today to Friday.
8 to 5.
Yep, 8 to 5. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
So there's 3 hours left today if anyone wants to run over at the end of this call. Okay, so I'm not gonna go over in as much depth some of the quarantine and isolation guidance that we've gone over before, but at our last call, you all asked for a new graphic about a particular scenario that we've heard coming up a lot in the childcare setting, and we have delivered thanks to a wonderful intern at University of Arizona. So I'm gonna walk you through that scenario and share that new graphic with you all. But before I get to that, just again, a reminder about what a close contact is. Close contacts are individuals who were exposed to someone with COVID, and close contacts are the individuals who quarantine. Anyone who's tested positive for COVID, they isolate. So I just like to differentiate those two because I know they can often, we'll often interchange those, but they are different. So isolation is for anyone who's tested positive. Quarantine is for those who were exposed to someone who has COVID, and those folks are the ones who are a close contact. And what we mean by close contact is someone who is within 6 feet for more than 15 cumulative minutes within a 24-hour period, which means you could have been around someone who was COVID positive 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the afternoon, and 5 minutes in the evening, totaling 15 minutes, which would make you a close contact. If you provide care for someone at home who's sick with COVID, had direct physical contact, shared drinking or eating utensils, or someone got respiratory droplets on you, meaning they sneezed in your face, coughed in your face, something like that. Okay, so I like to just do that as a quick reminder, and then the scenario that we have talked about in the past is comes up a lot, I've noticed, in the childcare setting, which is this potentially 24-day stay-at-home situation. And so I'm going to try and go over this as clearly as I can, but just stop me if I'm confusing anybody. And I will share the link to this graphic as soon as I'm done explaining, so I'll get this to all of you. But this is what some of you had been asking for, and it's a situation where someone at home, usually a parent, has tested positive for COVID, and the kiddo was exposed. What do we do now? So the situation that we're talking about really only applies to when that positive person at home isn't able to isolate away from the kiddo. And this is why we see this a lot in the childcare settings, because we're usually dealing with little kiddos and their parents, a parent has tested positive and they're not able to isolate away from them because that's just hard. You know, they need to feed their kiddos, they need to give them baths, they need to put them to bed. So it makes it hard to isolate. So again, anyone who's tested positive for COVID, they need to isolate for 10 days. And when they are not able to isolate away from other people, like the kiddo, then the quarantine for the child isn't going to begin until the parent's 10-day isolation ends. And that's because quarantine doesn't start until the last known exposure with somebody. So if mom tested positive, she needs to isolate for 10 days, but she's not able to stay away from the kiddo for those 10 days. That means the last time the child is exposed to a positive person, in this case mom, that's when day 10 is over because mom is no longer transmitting the virus. So in that situation, once the 10 days are up, that's when the kiddo's quarantine begins. And that's how we can potentially get into this 24-day scenario. 10 days at home with the positive parent, isolating for 10 days, and then quarantine starts for kiddo, totaling 24 days. So I know we have talked in the past about shortened quarantine options, and those are still an option here. So it might be the parents' 10-day isolation, then the kiddos' quarantine starts right after that. They could have a shortened quarantine. So once the 10 days are up, they could have a 7-day quarantine or a 10-day quarantine potentially, which is, let me share a different screen so you can see the shortened quarantine options. But what's important to know about the shortened quarantine options is that it's really going to work if these additional requirements are met, which means if the kiddo doesn't have any symptoms and they're able to continue to monitor for 14 days, so they might not have to stay home, but they still need to be monitoring for symptoms, and they need to be following mitigation recommendations, which is wearing face masks, practicing social distancing, and proper hand washing. So this is why sometimes it can be hard for little kids to sort of meet the criteria for a shortened quarantine, because they're often, depending on how little they are, especially 2 and unders who shouldn't be wearing masks at all, then it can be hard to sort of implement a shortened quarantine if they're not able to wear face masks, they're not able to practice social distancing, or they're not proper hand washing because they might just be too young to do some of those things. But if all of these conditions are met, then a shortened quarantine is available. So quarantine may end after day 10 without testing if no symptoms have been reported during daily monitoring. So if they don't have any symptoms, 10 days have gone by, they didn't get tested, but 10 days have gone by, they still don't have symptoms, then they can return on day 11. Quarantine can end even earlier if they get tested and they don't have any symptoms. So you can see on the little calendar here, they get a test on day 5, the test is negative, they can return on day 8. So I just want to kind of reiterate that the reduced quarantine is an available option for kiddos. So if you have kids that were exposed to someone at home, just know that this is an option for a potentially shortened quarantine, but it's super important that the kids don't have any symptoms. And you know, we'd really prefer that they be able to follow these mitigation recommendations. If they don't meet these, then they need to quarantine for 14 days. So let me go back to our new graphic, and I'm just gonna go over this one more time. Okay. So again, this is just in the scenario where someone at home has tested positive for COVID and they're not able to isolate away from the kiddo that goes to your center. So that means the kiddo is going to have to quarantine on the last known exposure with the positive person at home. So let's say mom tests positive today, Wednesday the 3rd. Mom needs to isolate for 10 days, which would bring us to 10 days from the 3rd to the 13th. So once those 10 days are up, mom is no longer transmitting the virus, meaning that's the last known exposure for the child. And then the child starts their quarantine period. And that quarantine period is 14 days unless the kiddo can meet the reduced quarantine guidelines that I just went over. Okay, so let me share this graphic with you so you all have it. I'm going to drop it in the chat box right now, and then I'm going to stop here and see what questions have come up. Peggy, you're welcome. Our parents are responding well. That's great. So really what we wanted this graphic for you all, because this scenario I know comes up a lot for you all, is that you can share it with parents if you need to. So hopefully that visual can kind of help them understand why their child might need to be spending a good amount of time at home. I know it's a lot to ask for parents to have to stay home for that long, and then potentially even longer if they need to be with their child who needs to stay home for an additional 7, 10, or 14 days, depending on what the quarantine scenario is. Carolyn, thank you. This is perfect. I'm glad this is exactly what you needed. Can we get copies of these slides? So I'm not doing a slide presentation, Marla. You can see, though, the quarantine graphic I did just drop in the chat box. If there's other web pages or links or anything that I've shared that you'd like me to share with you specifically, just go ahead and put it in the chat box and I'll send it to you. So any other questions about this quarantine situation? I'm hoping I explained that as clearly as I can. I know it's a little bit confusing. Okay, hearing none, this is a good thing. Perfect. Okay, so I don't have any other updates for today, but if you all have any information that you'd like to share with me, I do have a couple of questions. Again, feel free to put this in the chat box or just shout it out, but I really would like to hear from you all about what you'd like me to share on this webinar moving forward. Jenny, it is confusing. This really helps. Good, I'm glad. So for our next meeting, which is on the 17th, I'll continue to share updates on vaccines every meeting until hopefully every single one of you is vaccinated. So that's still going to happen. But moving forward, are there other things that you all are seeing in your facilities that you have questions about, COVID related, anything that I haven't addressed so far that you'd like me to address in the future? Please, if there's anything, drop it in the chat box or shout it out. I really want to make these webinars useful for you all. Policies and protocols post-vaccinations. Sure, yep, that's a really good one. We can do that. Anything else? Also, you know, just like the graphic that I just shared that you all asked for and we were able to create, if there's other visuals like that that you feel like you're missing, or just other resources and materials, whether it be posters, brochures, flyers, anything printable that you think would help your staff or your parents, let me know as well, and we can see if we can get those things created.
Hi, Rebecca. Are you still taking
Yep.
questions? Hey, Rebecca.
I sure am.
You know that page where you have the frequently asked questions? Is there, is it possible to have that and send that out instead of sending people to the website to look it up? Is there because even, I'll just say this morning, I started getting questions, some from the community about situations and how to access the TMC My Chart that disappeared from their website. And then another person after a meeting today from Green Valley was saying that, you know, her husband keeps going on the site and is not able to get through. And I know, you know, we all have to be patient. This is this is a process. But, you know, those frequently asked questions might be helpful if we can just send people to, you know, send it out to the community so that they can just click on it and read through them.
Yeah, so something that isn't just a link to the website, you're saying you want it in like a Word doc or a PDF or something like that?
Yeah, do you think, is that possible that we can send those frequently asked questions in a doc?
Yeah, probably. I would think the only thing though is that the frequently asked questions are updated really regularly.
Right. Right.
So going to the website, I think you're going to get the most updated information. Okay. But I would expect someone in communications has, you know, just the copy, the content, you know, in a Word doc or something. So I can look into that and see if there's a way to get that information. Yeah. Yeah,
or just a link even, you know, that they could, you know, you can send it out, the link, and then people can just click on it. And then
yeah.
as they come through, all they have to do is, if they have email, they can go and just click on the link.
Yeah, so I put the link for the frequently asked questions in the chat box already, and I just put it in there again. So the link that I just dropped in there, Linda, copy and paste that, and you can send that out widely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Let's see. Do you have any flyers to post that masks are required? We made some, but they seem to take health department issued signs, etc. more seriously. Yes, let me get those. Mask. I'm sure we have them.
Becca, we
And
have these printed out at our chef's office, and anyone from the
okay,
community can come and pick them up too. So all they
okay,
got to do is just maybe notify you or anyone in the office that they're coming by to pick it up, and
okay,
we can get it to them.
perfect. So Jacqueline, if you just want to shoot me an email when we're done here and just say, you know, I'd like X number of signs, then we can coordinate a time where you can come pick those up. Does that sound good? Yes, okay. Jenny, address please, if you're referring to where to pick up there it is, 3950 South Country Club. So we're right on the corner of Ajo and Country Club. And that's where any of those signs will be should you need them. And again, if you are going to pick some up, just shoot me an email. That way I can have everything ready for you guys. Okay, Lori, if you test positive between first and second vaccine, do you still get second vaccine? Any information of estimated protection after receiving both doses of vaccinations? Okay, so Brian, I know this question got answered on your last call.
Yeah. So you if you get your first dose and then you end up getting a positive test in between, then you can wait 90 days before receiving the second dose. It doesn't affect the efficacy of the overall shot. You do have temporary immunity after getting through COVID, having an actual positive test result, whether asymptomatic or symptomatic. So in scenario mentioned, you get a first dose, 2 days later you acquire COVID, you would wait around an 80-day mark, and then you would schedule your second vaccine at that after that time period. At any new location, you're just making sure that you're using the same one, whether it's the Pfizer or the Moderna. We do know that 3 weeks after the second dose, or I can't remember if it's 3 weeks or if it's I think it's 14 days. I don't remember the specific timeline. It's somewhere in our FAQs, but you do have immunity after that time period after the second dose, and that both Pfizer and Moderna are looking at the booster, which will be a second series, and the timeline that will be required for that booster has yet to be announced at this point in time, though that will be something that we'll have to you'll have to keep up to date with as we continue to move through.
Thanks, Brian. Rachel, are there any good resources, either graphics or website links, to help us dispel myths surrounding the vaccine? So the screen I'm sharing right now is our myths versus facts COVID vaccine page. So I'm going to put this in the chat as well. So hopefully that helps Rachel or anyone else. So if you have anyone who's kind of wondering, you know, are the vaccines safe, et cetera, the information is all here. And again, from this page as well, it'll take you right back to our frequently asked questions page, which has a lot of the same information. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate your help. What about efficacy rates in minorities? Oh, good question. That's information I don't know off the top of my head. I've had staff ask. Okay, let me look into it and see if we can't get some good information for you. That's a really good question. I have seen that information somewhere on a different call recently, I think, but I just can't remember where I saw it. So let me look into it. Yeah, that's a good one. We've got a hand up. Amy, go ahead and unmute yourself. You've got a question.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for all the information. It's really helpful. I just want to let people know that I went this morning to the TCC and I was there first thing, and it took about a half an hour for me to get in and 45 minutes total with the 15-minute wait afterwards. And then some of my staff went this afternoon around noon, and it took them about 90 minutes total from start to end from their wait time, just so that they can kind of know wait times around there right now.
Super helpful. Thank you, Amy. And I've heard also that mornings definitely are the most quiet. So if you're able to go in the morning, you probably will get in a little bit faster. But that's really helpful to know kind of what the rough estimate will be. Thanks, Amy. Okay, so again, if you have any other questions, feel free to drop them. If you have anything else that you feel like you can use from us, so resources, links, printable materials, anything you'd like me to share at the next meeting, I'd love to hear any of that from you. Again, I want to make these useful for you. And if you don't have anything else, feel free to jump off. That's all I had for the day. So we're finished pretty early today. I'll hang on for another 10 minutes or so in case anyone has any last minute questions or anything else you want to run by me. But otherwise, I will see you all on the 17th, 2 Wednesdays from today. And thank you again for all of your hard work and for your patience and for bearing with us through this process. We really appreciate it.
Rebecca,
Yeah.
I had a question. So the CDC used to have on their website really great infographics, similar to the reduced quarantine one and the new one that you just provided us. But it gave all the different scenarios. So like if you're living with a person, then this is how the quarantine works. If you're able to isolate, then this is how the quarantine works. And it just went through every scenario, and it was a really nice, concise infographic. But then when they came out with the reduced quarantine, they took all those pages down. Do you know? And I thought those were very helpful for our families.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I've not seen those specifically, but I can imagine what they are. So I don't, if they're not on their website anymore, then I don't know that I'd be able to help dig them up, but I will certainly look around or see if we have something similar that we can put together that looks like that.
Yeah, so it's similar to, it used to say, for example, like I'm caring for somebody like with COVID and unable to isolate, and then it would provide an infographic of like when the quarantine starts, last exposure, and then it would be, I'm able to isolate, and then it would provide the quarantine guide, but I've had a close contact, and then it would provide that infographic. So it was like for each specific scenario, and then we could just tell parents, and then they would understand, because I think I'm finding that a lot of people are having difficulty that day 0 is like the last exposure, and that day 1 is the next day, and they're getting confused on that. So like an infographic that would show that would be really helpful for those for the different scenarios. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Okay, any other questions? Feel free to shout them out.
Hey, Rebecca, this is Adrienne. I have a question. Hi.
Yeah.
So this has to do with kids who present with COVID symptoms, and they go home. Then at that point, the family has 2 options. They can stay home and then not test, not see a doctor. In that case, we let them know that we're going to treat the case as if it was COVID positive. So we ask them to quarantine, or they can, do a medical consultation. And, if they go to have a medical consultation, then the doctor, can kind of do 2 things. They can test the child, or they can, say, I don't see a reason to test the child, and potentially write a note to return to school. Now, the other kids in the class and the staff who've been around that child, were concerned about the length of time that it takes, especially given the fact that like the parents don't even have to get their child tested, so like we have no answers whether, or like, yes, this child had a fever, your child was directly exposed with no mask, the classroom's open tomorrow, that, I guess everybody cross your fingers. It's very worrisome that, I'm just wondering, what are the general guidelines at that point? Are you guys saying, yeah, everybody come back to school tomorrow? Or do you just shut down the classroom and wait for, the doctor, or, what I'm saying?
I do. Oh, that's a tough one. If Diane or Athena is on and you have a better answer for this, please go ahead and jump on and give me your thoughts while I kind of think through this. But, that definitely is tough. And if they don't get tested, as you said, then we're going to treat them as if they have COVID, which means that they would need to stay home for 10 days. So if the kiddo's got COVID-like symptoms, they don't get tested, they need to isolate at home for 10 days. If they come back at 10 days, we can feel confident that even if they had COVID, they're no longer going to be transmitting it to others. And if they didn't have COVID and they had some other illness, they've still been home for 10 days, which means likely whatever they had has passed. Again, the other thing to remember too is if someone has COVID-like symptoms, whether they get tested or not, they're home for those 10 days, they have to be completely symptom-free before they return. So that means no fever for 24 hours. So keep that in mind too. So whatever illness they have, when they come back to your facility, they shouldn't be having any symptoms, so they should be well and ready to go. I think there's hopefully some comfort in knowing that if they've been home for 10 days and they do have COVID, at the end of those 10 days, they should no longer be transmitting the disease to others. And if they didn't get tested, we never knew what they had. If they're symptom-free at the end of those 10 days and they come back, then they're likely not transmitting whatever it is they had either.
It's just not about the person. It's just about the other people who are kind of feeling like they're in limbo, especially if a test isn't done. And so and I'll give you more specifics about this particular situation, that thankfully the family is going to have a test done. So they had the test done, but now they have to wait for the results. So, it's not as bad as having to wait for 10 days and have no answers, but we're going to have to wait for at least 48 hours without any answers. And in the meantime, all the kids are still coming and the staff are still coming, so I was just wanting to know, is there anything that I can do, or I don't know, is that the general guidance that we just we don't shut down the rooms when we're waiting for test results from a symptomatic child? There's just the symptomatic child is not allowed back on campus.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
So I'm going to see, again, Diane, do you have a good answer for this, for what you've been sharing with folks?
Hi, Adrian, and Becca and others. To some extent, we look too at what the symptoms are. And, certainly if they have symptoms that are only consistent with COVID, then we'd probably look at it as presumed COVID, I would think. It's a gray area sometimes when it's a more common or mild symptom kind of thing, in terms of who's been exposed and whether they've really been exposed to something.
Yeah, I mean,
I know it's not a good answer.
It's very tricky because we know it was a fever spike. And so we read 100.5 on the thermometer, but then, the family says, well, as soon as they got home, they were their typical selves. We've done the temp 3 times. It's always been within normal range, never, above 98. And so it's so difficult to go off of the symptom, but, so I guess what I'm going you know, our room is still open. The staff are still coming. We've informed all the families. We, you know, recommended the family with a symptomatic child to get tested. They did. We're waiting for results. So I felt like we did everything correctly, but I just wanted to check in and say, you know, like ask, am I doing enough to protect the kids and families? You know, and it sounds like from what I'm hearing, I am. Right?
Yes.
Sorry, I was just waiting
I
to see if
think so,
Diane
and
was gonna.
I think, you know, I still, you know, kind of continue monitoring the other children and that kind of thing, and see if anybody else is starting to show signs, then we might reevaluate.
Yeah, I figure we do have that safety net that, you know, every day there's a health screening questionnaire. The families in that classroom know that there has been a symptomatic person, so they're going to be watching their child even closer, you would hope. So
That
we
was
would
gonna be my
catch it that
question.
way.
Yeah, so I didn't have anything else, Diane. I'm right on with you. So I know, Adrian, that is a tough situation. I do think having those sort of daily wellness checks is a good option. And then this is for all times, but especially in those kinds of sort of situations where you're in a little bit of a limbo, is to just make sure that you're keeping up with mitigation strategies as best you can. So that means staff wearing masks at all times, kiddos wearing masks that are able to, social distancing as much as you can, lots of hand washing, making sure that if you can, keeping the kids and staff in cohorts, so not having staff move between rooms throughout the day, keeping kids in one classroom and not moving across rooms, limiting visitors indoors, you know, doing drop-off and pick-up in a way that's socially distanced. Those are all the things that, if you keep those up, that'll help ensure that spread doesn't occur if that child does test positive.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone else still on the call? Okay, I'll hang on until 2:50 if anything comes up. Otherwise, I will sign off in just a couple minutes.
Rebecca, I do have one other thing that I'm just wondering about. I know the last time that we were on, that we were talking about masking, and, you know, there was this ambiguous gray area because for children ages 2 to 5, because from what I understand, the city mandated children 5 and up do wear masks in school settings, but they've said that children 2 and younger should not wear masks. So the children between 2 and 5, it was like, I thought I heard someone say, check with your legal representation on how to proceed. Is that the guidance still, or is
I
it?
don't remember the legal representation piece, but 2 and under definitely do not wear masks. That's not our recommendation at all, nor the CDC's. So 2 and under, no masks. The Pima County mask mandate is for 5 and up. So, you know, we would recommend that children 5 and up wear masks as best they can. Again, I know that's really hard, but that is the Pima County mask mandate, or is for 5 and up.
You're right. So for ages 2 to 5.
So it's not, you know, a requirement that they need to wear them. I think if they're able to, and that's something that, you know, they're comfortable wearing and they're able to wear them, then I think, you know, that's totally fine if that's something that's safe and okay for that particular child, but definitely not 2 and under. 5 and up is the only thing that, you know, we really would say, yes, you know, they should be wearing masks if they're 5 and older, but the 2 and 5 group is not required.
Yeah, I'm just curious to know, you know, how many other preschool, or how many preschools are masking kids, ages.
You dropped off a little bit at the end there, but I don't know, and that's a good question. That would be tough to figure out, really, how many are actually having kids mask. Diane, you might have a better feel for how many, centers are having kids mask, but yeah, good question, and I don't know how we'd find that out.
My sense has been that it's not a lot. Certainly, if anybody's being asked to mask, it's more the preschoolers. And I think that one of the confusing issues was an emergency measure issued by Kara Chris back pertaining to charter schools and public schools, indicating that masks should be worn on those campuses. But my understanding was, and maybe we can get more clarification, is that wasn't really applying to childcare as much as public and charter school campuses.
Right.
But I don't hear a lot of centers masking the 2 to 5 or 2 to 4.
Yeah, I'm just curious about who is, because we've had some concerned parents, rightly so, with news of these new strains that are more contagious, and they are wondering, some are wanting the kids to mask, and I'm just wondering, what is the status of new strains in Pima County? Do we have any confirmation that we have some of these scary varieties that I've heard about from like London or South America or something?
That's another good question.
What I've heard is Pinell County and Maricopa have found a couple cases. Is that what you've heard, Rebecca?
Yeah, I knew there was one of the strains was found in Maricopa. I wasn't aware of the Pinell one. So, but again, I think at this point it's maybe no more than those few cases that have been identified. So I think it's.
I agree. I think I heard of 3 cases statewide.
Yeah, but so
That's
just the way
good
things
to
are
know.
going, though, I would expect that to probably go up, just the way things are going. But for now, yeah, I think it's just a few.
Okay, because the way that we were going to proceed is we were going to survey the parents in the different classrooms to find out, who really wants this. It may surprise us that, more people want it than don't, and we're happy to move forward with masking in that, in those rooms. And so, there's been this push, please get this survey out, ASAP. We're so worried about these strains. And so I can let them know, that I was on this call today, that there's one confirmed case in Maricopa County. And, so we are, taking action before this is a major, outbreak in our area. So if we start masking now for kids, then now's the time to do it. And we were told to, one strategy for increasing our safety with our staff is to make sure that we're using these 3-ply masks that have a filter in the middle, and use them in a disposable, like one-use kind of a manner. So we went and got some from Costco, at the recommendation of our medical advisory committee that we have at our school. So just wanted to put that out there.
Nice. Okay. Good deal. And
Thanks.
then, again, obviously vaccinations are really what we're hoping are going to help curb some of the spread. So as much as you all can to, walk up to TCC this week, or to help encourage your colleagues to get vaccinated, or share any information that you think will help dispel any myths. If you have anything that you think will help get some of your other childcare colleagues to register to get vaccinated that you feel like we're not providing, let me know, because we really want to get folks vaccinated, and you know, if we're missing the mark somewhere, just let us know.
Oh, you know, that brings up another question, and maybe you can tell me if this is like on the website, you know, about the vaccines. We, you know, what is the protection that we have, you know, with the vaccine? You know, I've heard different things, you know, you're 90% protected, or you won't be protected against the new strains, you know. So can you, how is getting the vaccine going to protect our kids and families and staff?
What I want to say, I don't want to give you the wrong information. The efficacy for Pfizer and Moderna, I want to say, are both like in the 95% efficacy range, meaning when they did the clinical trials, essentially 95% of the people who got the vaccine didn't get COVID. But let me.
And that's after 2 doses.
Correct.
Yeah. And which is really a remarkable efficiency rate for a vaccine. It's really high. Usually flu vaccines and others are not that high. So these first 2 vaccines are performing extremely well in terms of efficacy.
And yeah, that is really great. With that, you know, after we all get our second shot, what is the, you know, are we still going to be having to wear masks for a year or 2 after this? Just curious, you know.
Yeah, that's kind of one of those we don't know yet. More research is needed kind of scenario, because the vaccine is so new. We don't have any sort of long-term data to show. So if you can see the screen I'm sharing right now, here's kind of our answer for that question right now, which is, you know, as we just mentioned, the vaccines do protect against COVID. But even after you get the vaccine, please continue to follow steps to protect yourself recommended by us and CDC, which would be basic things like wearing your mask, cleaning your hands often, avoiding close contact, staying home when you're sick, those kinds of things. So, you know, I would expect to continue to do those things even after you receive the vaccine, until we have a better idea of how well everything is working. And, you know, it really matters too how many folks are able to get vaccinated. So the more people we get vaccinated, the less people there are out in the community that are able to spread the disease. So for the time being, if you've gotten your vaccine, continue to keep up with sort of regular protection measures.
Yeah. Okay. And any you know, word on how the vaccine that we're getting from Moderna or Pfizer is holding up against this new strain in Maricopa County? And like, is there a new name for that strain?
That's another good question. I don't know the answer to that one. I'll look into it.
I think they're referring to the North Africa is the newest, and the UK is how they're referring to the other one. And I think in Arizona, we've only seen the UK. And like I said, I think it's like 3 cases, maybe 2 in Maricopa, 1 in Pinal. And I do believe that from what I've heard Dr. Collins say in briefings and stuff, or Dr. Garcia, that we're looking for it. So, you know, certain swabs are being tested to make sure we know as soon as it happens here. And so effectiveness, I think I've heard on Dr. Garcia's media reports, him saying that they seem to be effective, at least against the UK at this point, but they're still studying it.
Okay, so more kind of like to be determined, but yeah, we're making good progress. I really appreciate you taking the time to answer all my questions. Thank you.
For sure. Okay. Anything else from anyone on the call today? I'm going to stop recording. I probably should have done that a while ago.